one. Boom. Good evening, everybody. It is Steve with Real Progressives. We're trying something just a little bit different tonight. I have brought two of my favorite people from Real Progressives onto the show with me tonight. But before I bring them in, I just want to give you all a little bit of a teaser for what we're going to talk about tonight. Obviously, the mainstream media has all eyes focused on Syria, and why not? War is awful. The left has been trying its best to figure out if it has an anti-war movement left in it or not. And we haven't seen an anti-war movement since George W. Bush because, as per usual, our friends, the Vote Blue sycophants, don't know how to protest a war that a Democrat is waging. That is the cancer that is the Democratic Party, and that, my friends, is why the left is in such ill repair. Now, with that, let me just state unequivocally the reason why you had a revolution in the making was because America is 1,000% fed up with the neoliberal establishment. We are all fed up with the lies and the propaganda and the gaslighting that our government has done to us over the years. That said, we have been conditioned for many, many, many years to believe that our government is broke, that our government cannot meet our needs, and that our government is like held in ransom to the rich. It can't do anything without their tax dollars. And we all know that that's not true because money doesn't grow on rich people. Money grows from the federal government. So with that, I'm going to bring on my two guests. Let me go ahead and bring them on right now. We have my dear friend, Gabriel McArthur, and we also have John Lancelot. Hello, gentlemen.
How you doing, Steve?
Thanks for having us, Steve.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys very much. So let me ask you guys are two people that have bought into modern monetary theory and have test-driven some of the words. You have played around with it a little bit in public. You've debated some people. What has been your experience so far? Gabriel, why don't we start with you?
Well, I'm relatively new to modern monetary theory. I've probably been doing research on it for the past 5-6 months or so. You actually turned me on to it. You weren't doing a stream about modern monetary theory, but I asked you what it was, and I went off to the races looking it up. And it took me about 20 minutes to confirm it, but it's taken me a lot longer to understand it. And my experience with people is they seem to be set in proving how much they know about the way people think the economy works. And it's been kind of difficult to even just have a regular conversation about it. They seem to get kind of hostile, as if you're talking to them about something that's completely out of the ordinary.
Yeah, so let me ask you something, John. You've been doing this as well. Talk to me a little bit about your experience in dealing with the average person that you interact with as you tell them the truths of modern monetary theory.
Well, where I start is with Congress itself. I mean, Congress has the power to go through an authorization committee and say, we're going to put X amount of dollars into whatever program we need to, whatever the priority is. If the priority is defense, the money will show up. You will get at least $500 billion in defense spending, or you'll get some form of spending, let's say, on space travel with NASA, the Mars initiative that they have going. And you'll see it, not even a peep of dissent on the legislating a budget for those programs. But when you get to, needed programs like a Medicare for All program or a renewal of the American infrastructure program, the first question you get is how you're going to pay for it. And they don't even understand that Congress can, if they had the will to pay for these programs because they have the power to do it. When I explain that to people, they understand it pretty much because, I mean, when you're in second grade, you were taught that Congress has the power to purse. Congress has that portion of traditionally executive power from old power structure, just say monarchies or parliamentary systems with monarchies, where the monarch is the one that has the power of the purse let's say in the past in Britain, the British Bank was within the confines of the dominion of the king. The founding fathers separated that, the power of judiciary, the power of executive. We separated that, and Congress ended up with the power of the purse. If people don't understand that, I don't understand it either, how that goes over people's head. But modern monetary theory is basically covered by that legal precedent within the article of the Constitution.
Absolutely. So, Gabriel, you are running for office, or you're planning to run for office, but before that, you were actually a delegate for Bernie Sanders. You were at the convention, et cetera. What do you think the average burner thinks about economics? Do you think the average burner believes that federal taxes fund federal spending?
They do believe that. I mean, what I can tell you is what they've told me is that economics aren't as important as what's going on in the world right now. Not understanding that that is what drives everything that's going on in the world right now. Without a basic understanding of economics, you can't really understand how progressive policies will ever be implemented.
It's unfathomable to, as you look at, we've talked about this on several shows, but I guess with this team, I want to make a point that you guys are both running for various levels of state office. And within our framework of our Constitution is the right for the states to call for a constitutional convention. And a constitutional convention is what the GOP's big moneymakers like the Koch brothers are fighting tooth and nail for. And their sole purpose for a constitutional convention is, in fact, to pass a balanced budget amendment. Well, people don't understand this, but they want to fix the environment. They want single-payer health care. They want to be able to make sure that people aren't destitute. They want to be able to student debt relief. They want to be able to give free college for all. They want to do all these wonderful things. But the reality is that if a federal balanced budget is passed, the austerity will literally be built into our Constitution. Mm-hmm. And there can be no more greater concern to the environment and everything else that matters to us than blocking that once you understand what's at stake. I mean, to me, this is a tragedy. What are your thoughts on a constitutional convention or a balanced budget amendment?
Well, when I think about that, I immediately think that, when we do go back to neoliberalist policies, when we go into, developing countries are in debt to the IMF, who don't have the luxury of going to the legislature and say, let's take care of our economy. It's being ran by a bank. We are fortunate enough to have a federal government that is not under the thumb of any World Bank or anything. And even that's questionable, but I know legally that we have that power. A balanced budget amendment would sabotage that process. And, it's almost obvious that both parties are in line when it comes to not wanting to, bring forth a Green New Deal. A balanced budget amendment, is such, even to think about it in the equation, how that would stifle our power and even taking care of our people here in America. I can't even fathom even why they would want to bring up and a constitutional convention by the states is a hard process. It's not even an easy process. And they're talking about these lofty ideas of doing this just to sabotage the U.S. Constitution. I can't even fathom why they even want to do that.
Well, I can actually clue you in on that. But before I do that, I want to ask Gabriel to join in. Sir, what are your thoughts on this?
I think even a well-intentioned person who wants a constitutional amendment for a balanced budget, they don't understand that it's limiting our full potential as a nation. We say that we're the greatest country in the world, but we're going to limit what we can do in real time by something like that. And I hear people talk about a balanced budget like they're genuinely afraid of a deficit. I don't know if it's because they project their own personal debt onto that, and maybe their personal debt is in dire straits, and so they think, I'm having a hard time, so our country is definitely having a hard time if they've got a debt. And the people who want a constitutional amendment that know what it will do are totally playing on those people's emotions.
Indeed. Yeah, I'm going to say this real quickly, and hopefully you guys will grab this. There was an article in the Fiscal Times today. I posted it in the Modern Monetary Theory for Real Progressives group, and I tagged a bunch of our top economists who are in there, like John Harvey and Ellis and Firestone and Mosler, et cetera. And really what they said was, how we've talked about the debt? Well, it may be even worse than you think. And I'm like, wow, these guys have no shame. They really, really hate you and I. They want us to suffer. What the hell, man? Like, these people live for this austerity shit. And this is what's deeply troubling. This is why my mission is to completely eradicate economic illiteracy from the earth, much less our country. Ultimately, our progressive movement, many of our own brothers and sisters in the struggle believe this stupid shit. And that right there, friends, is completely anathema to actually passing a progressive agenda. How do you go ahead and cut spending and pass all these things? Are you literally, it's like you've got to be almost like Sybil, have like 16 mental, persons inside you to come up with this kind of weirdness, because it's completely impossible. I mean, take your pick at this one, man. This is, to me, our movement needs to get a whole lot smarter, a whole lot quicker, or we are in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And we have to remember that a lot of those who, I would hope, not a lot, but a good portion of people who push these sorts of, agendas of austerity, it's just a step towards authoritarianism. I mean, we see what's going on in Washington right now. We understand that one of our major political parties has given in to deconstructionism and authoritarianism. And austerity is a way to keep the population in line. And, our government was made for the people. Our Congress is supposed to be there for the people. And right now, it's not doing its job. I mean, we have people who are being poisoned by lead in water. They're building pipelines over our natural habitats. What is it going to take? What is it going to take for people to realize, look, we have to reevaluate our economic position here. This is not working. We have to change our political and economic philosophy. It's not hard. We just have those who want to keep going and make themselves more powerful and richer, but at what expense? The expense of the human family and the expense of the environment. I mean, take your pick.
Absolutely. Gabriel, what are your thoughts, man?
Well, when it comes to progressives in relation to modern monetary theory, there's a mixture of reactions that I get. There's the one that we all strive for, which is, wow, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Great, I'm going to run with that. Then there is the folks who are just dead set in what they've learned because of their political science degree or business degree or whatever it is. They don't want to let that go. They spend a lot of hard work in that. So they're grounded in that. And then there's some folks who are like, that's too complicated for me to understand. I'm just going to write it off. I'm going to let you guys handle that one. And the way that I've tried to attack it is just take a look. Just open up your mind enough to see how this works, and you can make your decision from there. The hardest part is breaching that first barrier where they're just completely resistant to what you're saying. They're going to throw memes at you about how you're crazy and all that stuff.
All right, I want to say this real quickly. We have a situation where, as of right now, people believe that we have to, quote unquote, implement modern monetary theory, like it's a policy or something that has to be bought into. And the reality is that right here, right now, MMT is just a description of currency, wherever it is. It can describe Russia's currency. It can describe Great Britain's currency, Canada, Australia, and indeed the US. And when you look at the description of how that federal financing works, you understand that we are a free-floating, as in it's not pegged to any currency or any commodity, sovereign, meaning that our government is the creator of it, and it is a fiat, which means by decree, currency. It's non-convertible, so you can't say I demand gold for it. The bottom line is that we tax in it, and taxes are what drive the currency. Taxes are what give it its value. Taxes are what keeps the motor running, but taxes literally do not fund federal spending. However, taxes do fund state and local communities. So it's very interesting, in my opinion, that people would want to cut the spigot off of the federal spending, which in turn is what allows states to run solvently. It allows states to have the income to do these things that are otherwise unfunded mandates brought in by the federal government. These states are then going belly up. Look at Flint, Michigan. They can't afford to fix their pipes. Look at Puerto Rico. They're absolutely on the verge of being Greece in our own nation. We have places like Buffalo, New York that have gone bankrupt. We have Harrisburg, Pennsylvania that's gone bankrupt. The state of Pennsylvania has a $600 million shortfall right now. And a lot of that goes right back to when Obama told us to eat our peas, and they went ahead and implemented the sequestration. Talk to me a little bit about how you envision a federal-state relationship with the knowledge you have of modern monetary theory. And if you don't know, let's just talk about it for a minute. Who wants to go?
Well, we have something in Colorado called Tabor, which strictly limits what Colorado is allowed to raise and spend. And, you know, we have to decide, are we going to use this money for schools? Are we going to use this money for roads? And we definitely need improvement in both areas. And if we were to implement modern monetary theory in a responsible way, yes, states could raise taxes to take care of their things locally. But when that just doesn't cut it, well, then the federal government says, we're going to assist you with building roads. We're going to assist you with building schools, with building hospitals. You know, my state might not be in the same position as Pennsylvania, but we sure could use that help nonetheless.
Absolutely. John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If the Congress itself had the will to help the states, it would. It can. MMT is something that exists now. It could be done in the next 15 days if both parties had the will to do it. They just won't. In New Jersey, we have Atlantic City that has gone bankrupt, and that's a problem here. But yes, the state governments, local governments function differently, and that's why we have a federation. We have a federal government. And once you figure that both parties really don't have any interest in helping us in the way that we need to be helped, the way our government was designed to help us, they're going to throw us and all 50 states under the bus by not implementing its power to help us with its power over the purse, over money. And it's something that's obvious to me. And it's like Eureka when you figure it out. It's like one of those things. When I was, making my proposals in my campaign, when I first, started it, I was trying to figure out, okay, I knew the state was just, was in debt and basically broke. And the taxes are really high here, especially the property taxes. And, a governor actually has to come up with a solution that helps the people of New Jersey, just like any other state, including Puerto Rico, which is, a commonwealth and has issues. So, what can state officials do? What can the governors of the United States do? Well, forget about that question. What could the people of the United States do about it? The last speech I had, I was saying, look, the people that we put our local officials in office, they have to work for us. We want our roads paved. We want to make sure that our communities are safe. And that's, a reasonable request for citizens. And what's happening is that the states don't have the money because the federal government will not collaborate with the states. And now we're in a situation where they're trying to issue, and everything is building on each other, issue this balanced budget amendment, which is going to make it much worse for all 50 states because the federal government just will not hold it together.
So I'm going to pose the same question to you, Gabriel, but I'm going to say it slightly differently in this case. As I envision a more just society, one that benefits the states and one that actually allows the federal government to supplement the incomes, if you will, of the states. I envision a federal job guarantee. That federal job guarantee is across all 50 states and the territories. That job guarantee would not be funded by the states, but it would be administered by the states to ensure those jobs were pertinent to the areas in which they are at. I would also then in turn make those federal job guarantees a living wage, coupled with Medicare for all. I would have paid family and medical leave for those individuals partaking the job guarantee. I would have every benefit that you wanted under the sun wrapped in there. And that way, if a private entity wanted to hire someone out of the job guarantee, which in some respects is considered transitional work, because nobody wants to hire an unemployed person. It's better to hire an employed person. So the idea here would be, in my mind, I prefer to see it with a more robust wage scale, with a more permanent, or I should say, you can live on it if you choose to. I see that being the single greatest assist to not only the states, but to our nation as a whole, ending forever involuntary unemployment and allowing people to self-actualize by redefining what work is. Because all the people that hear federal job guarantee, for whatever reason, just like the same freakazoid reaction they have to the idea that taxes don't fund spending, they also come back and say, well, what about the robots? We don't need to work for the man, blah, blah, blah. But they don't take time to hear me say, redefine what the hell work is. You know, it's like you almost want to drop the elbow of truth on them. It's like redefine what work is, give them a living wage, blah, blah, blah. That will allow anybody to flee Flint, Michigan, or Puerto Rico, or anywhere else and force the government to respond to their needs. And in my opinion, it saves so much. And Nathan Tankus, who was on the other night, said he felt like we needed to take the pensions out of the state houses and federalize them, because the pensions are what's really sinking the states. So with that, given both of you're running, are you planning to run for Congress or Senate, Gabriel?
I'm running for Congress.
You're running for Congress, okay. So with that in mind, how would you leverage such a thing? I mean, you're representing your home turf, but at the same time, though, looking at it at a national level, what would your thoughts be on that?
Well, I mean, I think, just a little side note, I think every congressperson should approach it from, yes, we are representing this district, but understand that the decisions we make affect everyone in the country. And I think constituents need to consider that too. I mean, in my district where somebody, the congressman's holding a town hall, he basically only lets constituents in there. And people seem to accept that idea. What a congressperson does, like I said, affects everyone across the country. But in terms of what us utilizing modern monetary theory correctly means is, yeah, the state would take a little bit more of an administrative role. They don't have to make the kinds of decisions, who's going to get cut, who's going to get the money this time around. And they could focus on just making sure it gets distributed where it needs to go. You know, there are some towns in Colorado, just like many other, where there's no work. There's no new industry coming into town. So, you know, robots aren't the only problem, and a job guarantee wouldn't exactly fix everything, but it's one of the safeguards that we need. I think.
Let me ask you this. When I say a job guarantee, think about this for a minute. People in Colorado have elderly parents, correct? And they have children. Tending to an elderly relative is work. That's a job. Tending to a child, making a choice as opposed to having to rush back to pushing paper from one side of your desk to the other, that's a job too. That needs to be represented. You know, people that are good at guitar playing or people that are good at artwork can teach community art classes. Getting back to the public purpose, changing the way, because how many kids have to go to gym class like once every 3 weeks because they can't afford to have PE every day? or they can't afford to have a music class because they can only afford to take music once a month or something like that, and then the parents have to pay some exorbitant fee just to get a clarinet. I mean, these are things that we could easily afford to do, and we could easily fully fund a full staff member to teach classes once again. I mean, there's so many things, and not to mention, think about this. When you think about the work that's out there, our infrastructure is falling apart. I suppose the bridges in Colorado are in as ill a repair as most of the other states in the country. I imagine that the roadways need work. I imagine there's schools that are in ill repair and government buildings that are desperately in need of being cleaned up, and inner cities that could even be cleaned up. Work that we don't normally compensate for, but is work nonetheless, and it is not being done. It's just an idea, right?
Right, and that's it. Trump likes to talk about infrastructure spending. Democrats like to talk about infrastructure spending, but then they talk about inflation, they talk about the debt, when they don't realize you're going to take that money and it's going to translate into jobs, which translate into less people worried about what tomorrow is going to bring, worried about how they're going to feed their kids. Even something as simple as making sure that public schools are properly funded. A teacher shouldn't have to dip into their own pocket to make sure that their classroom has the supplies it needs. I graduated from a school that's relatively new. I was the first graduating class. And for the first few years, the school had to decide, we only get a certain amount of money. Are we going to use this for athletics? Are we going to use this for music? What are we going to use this for? Take a wild guess what they put all the money into.
Yeah, man. Yep.
They made sure we got a new stadium, made sure we got all the equipment that we needed, and all the arts programs had to raise the money that they needed. It shouldn't work that way. We have it within our power right now so that every student can join an activity that they want to be part of. So they're not, sitting at home bored or getting into trouble with their friends. If there's an interest, there's money to fund a teacher taking that on for kids. That's just one small aspect of it.
John, what are your thoughts, sir?
Well, for the past 8 years, New Jersey's been dealing with a governor, Christie, that was going after the school system, going after teachers. And it was painful to watch. It was painful to experience. There has to be a collective will, not only amongst the people who are in office, but the people who are putting people in office, that we have to really think about what we're doing when we're going into the voting booth. I don't have any confidence in either political party, just by the way that I've seen over the years how they, cynically go against our success, the success of our children in education, the success of the people in their careers. And now we're in the 21st century. We're still, fighting and quibbling over these issues, and we're not going into the 21st century. I mean, we're basically trying to get from the horse and buggy into the future, and it seems like they're dragging their feet. So what do? We have to have an honest conversation on the state of both parties, and have an honest conversation with our fellow Americans that what are we going to do in the voting booth? Who are we going to vote for? Because honestly, I mean, if you want to have a conversation about it, both parties are culpable in the misinformation about economics in general for years. And so we have to pretty much reverse that and reinform people that, look, as people, the Congress is our house. We have to clean it up, and we have to organize to do it. But don't expect the Democrats and Republicans to do it.
That's right. I wanted to say something here. I've got all three of us paneled right here on the screen. And I want to say this. I've seen people out there, they got the all caps going. We're about to go to World War III. Oh my God, we're going to war again, right? And here's my comment to that. I used to be the guy plugged in right there on the TV screen, watching away at all the tracer bullets, going crazy. The late night green screen while you're watching the bullets fly up and you're watching the bombs hit and all this other good stuff. And I used to sit there and watch that, and all I could do was focus on war and what's going on. Well, here's the deal. Once you understand the economics of what I'm talking about, go back and watch the 2005 film, the 2005 documentary, Why We Fight. And you will realize that strategically the United States of America has placed every bullet manufacturer, every wing piece, every teeny clip on a friggin' dashboard of a helicopter, every single bolt, you name it, in every one of the 50 states. There's a piece of every piece of machinery built in every single state. Every single state has a chunk in the game of the military-industrial complex. And so what happens? When they think they're about to hit a recession, when they think they're about to have a financial crisis, because they don't have the sack, the desire, the will to spend on the 99%, they go to war instead. And it has been happening forever. This has been the non-stop stimulus package that they can drape a flag around and say, hey guys, we got to do it for old Uncle Sam. Okay? And if you don't understand this, then you're going to keep going, watching the tracer bullets flying up in the air, watching the pilots get on there with the scars and scratches, looking like, and this is what's going to be captivating to you. And I'm telling you right now, I'm as concerned about the United States going to war yet again for another regime change or whatever. But let's be fair. Donald Trump has thrown up, 59 Tomahawk missiles into a base that was largely empty. I think there were 5 deaths. At the end of the day, Obama sent some 14,000 bombs, maybe even more than that, over the course of time. You didn't see not one of these vote blue sycophants out there in the streets protesting, bombing Yemen, Yemeni weddings, or anything else, Doctors with Borders, nothing. It was like, can't complain about the vote blues because that's what we do. We stick to blue. We're worse than the blue line of silence with the police. We vote blue. We support blue. We never criticize blue. It's all blue, blue, blue. And I'm here to tell you that the way out of war is to make us energy independent, to make sure that we understand how to use our sovereign currency so we don't feel like we've got to do a stimulus plan by blowing up brown people all across the country, all across the world. And if you want to really care about peace and you want to really, really make some changes, then you better learn economics because that right there is why they're doing it. They got to jumpstart a failing economy. I'm telling you right now, you don't have to take my word for it. The month of March, we only added 98,000 jobs to the economy. The economy is coming to a crawl. And I'm telling you right now, the student debt bubble alone is going to bring us to our knees. Do either of you guys have anything to say about that?
Well, I mean, what I can tell you, I used to work with a company that helped people with mortgages when they fell behind. They did mortgage modifications. And over time, we were basically cleaning up after the crash. And you get to see people's loan terms, you get to see their tax returns, you get a bird's eye view of how people's finances are doing. And this is a side note, but I mean, I was dealing with a guy who I looked at his 1993 tax return and I looked at his 2013 tax return. He was making $17 an hour in 2015, which is pretty decent money. But he was also making $17 in 1993. So I'm afraid that we're headed towards something that's even worse than the crash of 2008. And, even just watching The Big Short, you don't have to have a huge understanding of all of this stuff, but it tells you not only are these big banks still doing what they were doing, but they're doing it in overdrive. Absolutely. And if we don't have this financial literacy to people know, we got to slow down, we got to really pay attention to who's calling the shots, then we might be headed for another one of those.
How about you, John?
I believe that progressive leadership and progressives in general have to be able to understand not only economics, but foreign policy and defense policy. If we are really serious about presenting a real plan to the people for a Green New Deal, we also have to have solutions for our conflicts abroad. And we have to have a very realistic plan. I'm as anti-war as anyone you could ever meet. But, we have to really dig in as progressives into what's going on abroad, how do we prevent it, how do we get out of it, and dealing with the military-industrial complex by repurposing it. Now, one thing is saying, well, we don't want any defense spending at all, which is not realistic. But, there's a lot of things we can do. I mean, I know when it comes to space policy, the military has always been involved with NASA, and a lot of great scientific discoveries came out of that program. And so it just takes a bit of innovation and to come up with a solution. Because yes, it looks like we're going to a very, very dark place. And, we have to keep our head above water and keep getting out of it. And the only way we do it is we keep saying, look, this is the solution. We have to come up with real policies of progressives to turn our country around, because the way it's going right now with just going to war because we want to get out of a recession, that's the old way. It doesn't work anymore. And we have to let people know that we have to turn around.
Absolutely. I want to say something here real quickly. One of our good, loyal viewers, asked, they don't understand how a student loan bubble could cause the recession. The issue isn't defaulting on student loans. What the issue is that you take that much disposable income, throw it towards one direction, and that money, let's be fair, it doesn't really get back out. This is federal. Since Obama took over, we are talking about we discontinued alt loans and we have gone straight for federal loan servicing. The federal loans are where the student loans are, and they are non-dischargeable debts. So people are getting garnished, etc. And when you garnish that money and you take that away and you make it so that it's like putting them in a savings account. It's like shoving it under a mattress. It's a leakage. It's a demand leakage on the economy. And so what happens is, if you understand the sectoral balances, this is yet again another leakage, and the bathtub keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And we are already paycheck to paycheck. Some of us have an embarrassing income, a good income, like if somebody were to see your check, they'd go, "Why are you complaining?" But then when they look at the way the outlay goes, they look at the things that are non-dischargeable debts, and they realize that you're really not living any better than the guy flipping burgers at Mickey D's. And this is a very, very sad truth about the disposable income in America for the average working man and woman. So as we look, you got to realize it's not the defaulting on the student loans necessarily that's going to cause it. It is the lack of income, money moving through the economy, that velocity of money as it shrinks down, and people are literally having to choose between eating and paying their electric bill. What do you guys have to say about that? Anything?
Well, definitely. What you're saying is true. It's inert. Inert debt causes problems. If you're not moving that around and using public policy to make sure that people are getting to where they need to go in their careers, and that debt is being moved into an asset, and it works, then nothing's going to happen. We're going to have stagnation. The tub is going to keep getting shallower and shallower. And I just think there's a lack. I think they just don't want to do it. They have some other plan. They want to control the American worker, or they want to cause pain because they're masochists. I don't know. It's just it's mathematics. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not even a complex differential equation. It's very simple. That if you keep the velocity up, you don't let that debt stay there because of some austerity, then the economy is going to be moving much smoother.
What do you say there, Mr. McArthur?
I mean, I think that's a great springboard to help people understand this thing in a very simple way, is that if you are paying all of your money into a student debt, that's just like you said, going straight to the government. That's money that's not circulating. You're not spending it. That's not money going into somebody's paycheck. That's not money going into supplies when somebody goes to order something for their business. And when you're talking on an individual basis, when somebody owes like $19,000 or something like that,
$127,000.
Yeah. I mean, that's if you're getting off easy. But they think on it again. They think on an individual level. They don't realize that that's 127,000 times however many students still owe. That's not being circulated among the rest of us, and it's not coming back to you either.
Yeah, that's scary. It's frightening. It should be very frightening to everybody. All right, we are at the 20-minute mark here, and I want to kind of wind down here. Just so everybody is aware, our host for our election, John Lancelot, will be coming on live. Again, he's double dipping tonight. He's going to be going on at 9 o'clock, soloing, talking about Syria for all those folks that still like to focus on that. John's got a better take on it. I can't wait to see it. But in the meantime, though, I want to give each one of you a chance to kind of give your capstone tonight, kind of wrap up what you've talked about, and just let everybody know, give them something to take home and think about. John, I'll start with you since I started with Gabriel.
Yeah, so I just want everyone to remember that progressives are on the right track. We don't need the Democratic Party anymore. And we really have to think about how we're going to pull together a coalition where we could talk about real issues and real solutions and not deal with fear. I mean, the only thing to fear is fear itself. So if I wanted you to think about anything tonight, I want you to think that how, of yourself, as individuals, what thing could I do today to help solve the issues for tomorrow? Because that's the way that we have to start thinking. We cannot afford to be deluded and think that others are going to do the job for us. And we have to continue to have these conversations and have these conversations about foreign policy, economics, and come up with a platform that the whole electorate could understand, not just a portion of it. And that's why we're here.
Very, very good. And Gabriel, man, I'm going to give you your shot, buddy.
Sure. I think as we leave away from this and you start to talk to your friends about modern monetary theory and what it means for us, and a progressive challenges you on it, maybe not necessarily go after them full force, but ask them, what do you think progressive means? What does that mean to you? Because most of us have an understanding that to be progressive means you're trying to advance the quality of life for all of us. Whatever means it takes to do that. And so ask them why they are so rigid in their ideology that they won't expand upon these things that we know could help us. And try to let them know, just take a look. Stephanie Kelton's Angry Birds video. It's a great introduction, not only to understanding it, but also how to explain it. I'm watching it over and over myself so that I can have these conversations with people. And that's really what it boils down to. Have conversations with people, your siblings, your coworkers, if they'll let you. Anyone that you can who's willing to listen, and even if they're a little resistant, give it a shot.
That's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick close here, guys. So real quickly, as many of you know, my entire personal ministry, if you will, or activism is founded in producing a population that understands macroeconomic reality. And as each of these gentlemen has demonstrated wonderfully tonight, let me bring them into the picture so I'm talking with them here. What we've got is a situation where people are in varying degrees of understanding of the world around them. It's up to each one of us to demand that we get treated better. The right wing is here to clip our wings, literally. And the left wing is here to try and placate us and make us think everything's okay. And the reality is that we inherently know everything is not okay. And we also know, wait a minute, hold on. So you're telling me you don't have to raise taxes every time you bomb somewhere? You don't have to raise taxes every time you give some money to Israel and so on and so forth. But damn it, every time I say I need a little bit of help to make it so that I don't starve, you're going to talk to me about inflation? Something ain't right. Something smells like dog shit. And I'm not digging it. I'm not buying it, And I think that, I see a lot of people, and I just want to make this statement here, and I'm not going to ask for your feedback on this one, but it's something to think about. I see a lot of folks out there. In fact, I got into a terrible fight, a heated fight earlier, fancy that, with somebody who was trying to push a resource-based economy / the Venus Project / Jacques Fresco's Venus Project. Now, mind you, folks, I love reading about this stuff. I absolutely love it. And in a perfect world where there's a dome and we're all progressives living under that dome and we can make decisions within that dome, then we can do stuff like that. But right here, right now, this very second, people are dying. Not in 30 years, not in 100 years, not even in 5 years, but right now, people are dying. And modern monetary theory is a description of currency as it is today. Today. And what we're saying is solutions to save lives today. I don't need to look up your resource-based economy. I don't need to look up Jacques Fresco. I already know him. I've already read him. Great stuff. Not pertinent to saving lives today. Now, you may want to talk about this, and it may be good at your book club on Friday nights when you're sitting around just waxing about things that could happen off in the future. But if you're trying to save lives today, modern monetary theory does that. And that's what we're advancing here at Real Progressives. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time. It was wonderful. I hope we can do this again soon, maybe even make it a regular thing. So with that, folks,
Definitely.
thank you very much, Steve Grumbine, Gabriel McArthur, John, Lancelot, Real Progressives. Have a great night, everybody. And tune in here in about 10 minutes. John's going to be flying solo. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Mm-hmm.